So the question is, why are flowers beautiful? And it has lots of implications for art creation and art appreciation. That's why it's super interesting to me. We're going to start by not accounting for all beauty, because beauty is a lot of things. There's probably a lot to untangle, and there are many aspects of it. We're just going to look at one aspect of beauty, which is attraction. So why are flowers attractive? That is a bit more strange, because we can notice that flowers are attractive to a lot of things. There are a lot of different species that are attracted to flowers, and there are a lot of different species of plant that are attractive to many different things. Let me kind of clarify that. We got flowers. Let's just say that flowers are a lot of different types of species of plants. And then we have bugs. Flowers are attractive to insects, and there are a lot of different types of insects. It's not all insects, but there are a lot of different insects. Flowers are attractive to bees. Flowers are attractive to butterflies. Flowers are attractive to moths, mosquitoes, bugs. And they're also attractive to a lot of birds. Not as many, but some birds. And very importantly, they're attractive to humans. And again, it's odd because it's most flowers. It's odd because it's, how do I say this? It's odd because there are a lot of different species of plant that produce flowers, and they are very consistently beautiful to humans, and sometimes beautiful or sometimes attractive to certain bugs. We can actually look at certain flowers and notice that they're using mimicry. There's something called like the bee orchid or something like that, and it looks like a bee. It attracts bees. It makes a lot of sense. But that makes it obvious that not all flowers are doing this type of mimicry to attract a certain species. So that's a little strange. There are other flowers that actually use mimicry in terms of their scent, and they smell like rotting flesh or something of that nature, which again has that same curious quality in that it points out that most flowers are not doing that. You smell a flower, it smells like a flower. And so that means that there's something else going on there. We have bugs and birds that are evolving in such a way to be attracted to certain flowers. And we have certain plants that are evolving in such a way that they are more attractive to certain bugs. And then we have humans over here who are just enjoying the show for whatever reason, and we're just liking all these flowers. We have not evolved, seemingly, to be specifically attracted to flowers. Apes are not attracted to flowers. Apes don't eat flowers. Humans don't even eat flowers. We just like the way that they look. What's up with that? I don't know. I don't get it. All right. So the explanation, this is from David Deutsch. The explanation is that flowers are objectively beautiful. Wait, hold on. Okay, I hear you. You got objections. I also have those same objections. That seems like a weird jump. It came out of nowhere. I don't know where it came from. It came out of nowhere. Let's get into it. We have to start by understanding what it means to be a good explanation. This is all a part of why David Deutsch is proposing objective beauty. So we start with what a good explanation is. The first thing of a good explanation is that it accounts for the thing that is attempting to account for. That makes sense. You explain something, you have to be explaining the thing. Second thing is that it's criticizable. Another way of saying that is that it's falsifiable. You might say that it's falsifiable or testable. The next one is that it's hard to vary. And the final one is that it has predictions. And if you have an explanation that has all of these qualities, then generally you want to stick to that explanation until you have another explanation that's better. And better just means that it accounts for everything that the previous explanation accounted for, and it is slightly more wide-reaching and has different predictions. So the first one is that it accounts for the thing. Why would objective beauty account for why flowers are beautiful? Well, flowers seem to be attractive to humans. Would it make sense that humans have the ability to see objective standards or to evaluate objective standards? Yes, humans can see objective standards because they are universal explainers. They have the ability to understand anything that is possible to be understood in the entire universe. A part of the reason why is because every single thing that happens in the universe is a physical transformation, which you might want to call a calculation. You might not want to call it that, but David Deutsch would call it a calculation. And any calculation that is possible to happen can happen within the mind of a human being. It may not be able to happen very quickly. We may not have enough memory to do big calculations or whatever, but a human can do any calculation, and we can simulate any calculation to any degree of accuracy. So we can simulate something that's slightly less accurate, but we can still, when we simulate it, we understand it. So we have the ability to understand literally everything in the entire universe, which gives us the ability to see objective standards in terms of objective truth and objective beauty and anything else that would be objective. So that would account for why humans can see the objective beauty in flowers, because humans can understand everything and the objective standards will be easier to quickly see. Another thing that's being accounted for is that the flowers are attractive to bugs and birds. And the idea is that using objective standards is the easiest way to communicate across multiple species. If you have two species that have evolved separately in different ways and they don't have any shared genes for attraction, then the easiest way to communicate between them would be through objective standards. This is how objective beauty is accounting for why flowers are beautiful and attractive to multiple different species. Now, if that all doesn't make a lot of sense to you, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. I'm thinking this through. I'm trying to understand this position because of all of the implications to it. All the implications to it resonate with me quite a lot. So I was very interested because of that. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of discussion about this particular thing. The person, David Deutsch, who proposed this idea, he mostly talks about physics and he talks about epistemology, all this kind of stuff. I'm not as interested in. I'm very interested in beauty, not as interested in epistemology. So I have to kind of go through learning about his epistemology, which is like theories of truth in this type of philosophy thing. And I have to understand all that and then use it as an analogy for the beauty thing. Because the weird thing about what he calls a good explanation, as I said, when you have a better explanation, it usually accounts for more things. So as you get better and better explanations, they become more wide reaching. And then you get to this point where you have an explanation that just starts to go into every field, and it starts to apply to all different things, which is why he talks about such weird things like objective beauty. The next thing is that it's hard to vary. Hard to vary means if you change any part of the explanation, then it no longer explains what you are trying to explain. So for example, we're talking about objective beauty standards, and that is the reason why flowers are attractive to bugs and to birds and to humans. And if we were to say that it is cultural beauty standards, which makes flowers attractive to bugs and birds and humans, that would not make sense. And it's obvious that it doesn't make sense because humans don't have shared culture with bugs and birds or plants. And if we said something like, well, it's the shared genes between these things, I can just point out that plants and bees don't have shared genes, or at least they don't have a lot of shared genes, or bees and birds don't have a lot of shared genes. Humans and those things don't have a lot of shared genes. So it doesn't really make sense to say shared genes. In addition to that, not all the bugs who have shared genes are attracted equally to the flowers. Not all the birds who have shared genes are equally attracted to flowers. And apes who have shared genes with humans are not attracted to flowers. So again, shared genes does not account for what we're trying to account for. And shared genes is a good example because it's actually easy to vary. Because I can point out that there's very little shared genes. Like we don't share genes. We diverge very early in the evolutionary chain. So I might say we don't have any shared genes, but someone who's sticking to the genomic explanation for why flowers are beautiful to birds and bugs and people, they will just say, no, look at the other genes, not those genes that are obviously not shared. Look at the other genes. You just flip through all the different types of genes and that becomes easily variable. This explanation, that is objective beauty standards, is hard to vary because, as it turns out, when you switch out something else other than objective beauty standards, none of them account actually for what is attempting to be accounted for. The next thing a good explanation needs is it needs to be criticizable. Criticizable just means that you can present a different explanation, and then this explanation will be easily removed and replaced. That's pretty much all it means. And you could also just falsify it directly if you understand what the predictions are, and then you can falsify those predictions. You can test based on those predictions. Let's get into predictions. Okay, the first prediction. Again, these predictions, these are things that like resonate with my soul here. The first one is that beauty is unlimited, and we can have unlimited progress in creating ever more and more beauty. If there is objective beauty, and that is the reason why flowers are beautiful, then that means that beauty can have unlimited progress. The reason why is because we use language, and language which is ambiguous, and we're describing something that is objective, which is not ambiguous, and there can never be an exact overlap because the thing that is ambiguous will either account for too much and then it would have to be shaved down, or it doesn't account for everything and will have to be expanded. And you can never get exactly the right thing because one thing is objective and one thing is ambiguous. And obviously if you have an ambiguous language, it's going to mean different things to different people. And as culture evolves, also things are going to change. So you can never have an exact one-to-one with the language that you're describing or the explanations that you have. And in this case, it's the art that you're creating. You can never have that directly overlap with objective beauty, which means that you can always progress art. So in this case, there are still personal standards, there are still cultural standards, there are still species specific standards, but there just are also objective standards. And with the unlimited progress here, that means that only art that is in the direction, or beauty, only art that is in the direction of objective standards can infinitely progress. Meaning that if something is not attempting or in the direction of objective beauty, if something's not pointing towards objective beauty, then it cannot progress infinitely. So for example, if you have something that is, if you have a technique that is perfectible, like if you're just trying to draw a picture and you're trying to draw it exactly, you're going by standards of, you're going by species specific standards, right? You're trying to draw it based on how a person individually sees it, and you're trying to do it exactly. And you can do that. You can do that and you can be finished. And once you've done that, you've stopped. You don't need to progress anymore. You can't progress anymore. You've met the standard. That is not objective standards. Along with that infinite progress is, if something is developing towards that infinite progress, you will get more and more problems. So once you have something that, a work of art that conforms really well to objective beauty standards, then you will just have something different that would need to be updated. Some new thing will be revealed as a problem, and then you would start to make more developments based on that problem and fix your work of art and update your work of art. I've been very interested in the types of works of art that, if obviously to me, seem to have problems that spark my own creativity and make me want to fix it, or make me want to resolve certain things, or make me want to add to certain aspects of it. I've been very interested in that type of art. And there are a lot of things that are like that. And there's a tension between those types of works of art that spark my own creativity and kind of get me activated, and then the other types of work of art that seem to be perfect in a certain way, and they seem to be untouchable, and I wouldn't want to add to them or do anything to it. So kind of, there's a struggle between those two. I think I'm kind of struggling myself between those two, and thinking about when I want more of one and when I want more of the other, or if there are different types of beauty and that type of thing. I've been wondering that a lot. But this idea that works of art that are in the objective beauty direction will raise more problems because they can never have an artwork that fully overlaps with objective beauty standards. They just show you that it conforms to most of the objective beauty standards, and then there are these little other things that are just slight problems, and those problems become more and more obvious and become more and more present as you're going further into the objective beauty. That's interesting to me, and I've been thinking about that recently now. And the same thing happens with scientific creations, right? If you have an idea about science and you have a new theory, you describe a lot of things, but then you find new aspects that you could not see before that are now a problem and that you have to resolve and have to try to understand, and then that gives way for a new theory, and then that gives way for a new theory, and so on and so forth. And you have unlimited progress with science. That means that art that is expressive is a individual standard. That is a personal standard, which would indicate that it does not have infinite progress. But something that is non-expressive or has elements that are non-expressive would be an indication that it could have infinite progress, and you could infinitely develop it and progress it to be more beautiful. You can hear that I'm saying a lot about science and art together and kind of analogizing those. So the idea is that if you have infinite progress, you can have these massive shifts in how we appreciate art, in the same way that we have recently, let's say in the last 100 years, we had really massive shifts in how we understood science and how we understood our reality. You can have that same thing with art and beauty, because if people are working on beauty, they can find new ideas and new ways of appreciating works of art and new ways of creating works of art, which will unlock this new world of ways to get into this objective beauty. In the same, like, obviously you can just think about this. If you had, before, you didn't have movies, you didn't have ways of having images which could be edited, projected alongside with audio, which could be edited also, and that could form a harmony and a new way of creating art that's more beautiful. We just didn't have that before. But once that was invented, then we have this new phase, this new arena of creation that is available for us to make beauty. So that may happen a lot, and it can happen in form of more technology in that kind of obvious sense, but it also could happen in terms of just having new theories of how to create art. For example, sonata form is a form of classical music composition, which was created at some point, and once that was created, it unlocks all these new ways of organizing music. And once those new ways of organizing music were starting to be established, then they find new problems and new ways to develop that and new ways to make that evolve. And it becomes this massive, more interesting. And you have this whole tradition of how classical music is organized into sonata cycles and so on and so forth. All of that is created based on somebody's innovation and the development of art. We also have the possibility of divergent art. Since again, if beauty is objective, you can never have the ambiguous standards completely overlap. You might have somebody who is overlapping a really small, different region of objective beauty, and they develop in their own way. And this you could just think about this as cultures. There are certain cultures that develop beauty and develop art in one way, and another culture that develops their art in a different way. And they both develop and they both are beautiful, but then when they come together, they're like, what the, you guys are doing something totally different. And they were doing something totally different, but they love it. And they can still like combine cultures, and they can trade with each other because they both were following objective standards, and they both can recognize the objective standards, and they both love what everybody else is doing. This is beauty and diversity. Another implication would be that humans over time are becoming more objectively beautiful, because humans have an eye for objective beauty standards. With sexual selection, you would see that humans will be, over time, choosing more and more beautiful mates, more and more beautiful partners, and then their babies will be more and more beautiful, and then humanity as a whole just becomes more beautiful. And that unlocks a whole other thing that we can just test and understand. Since humans are universal explainers, it would also follow that any other universal explainer will have these same qualities. So if you have future humans, obviously they're going to have the same qualities. If you have AGI, they're going to have the same qualities. So AGI is going to be beautiful, and AGI is going to have interesting art, and they're going to want to trade with us. Any sort of spirit or angels, they're going to have beautiful art, and they're going to want to trade with us, and they're also going to be beautiful. Aliens, they're going to have beautiful art, and they're going to want to trade with us, and they're going to be hot. Are you telling me they're going to be hot aliens? Have you seen Barbarella? I've seen Barbarella many times. I want the hot alien babes.